Good evening, everyone. Welcome this evening to a special meeting of the Board of Education. Tonight is the annual meeting where we elect the president and vice president for the board for the upcoming year. And it's my opportunity to be the presiding officer for a short amount of time here for this evening. So at this point, I'd like to declare a quorum president of the board and declare the meeting to order. And again, I'll be the presiding officer for a few minutes. And at this time, we're going to call forward Michael Weinkoop, a fifth grader from Smithburg Elementary School, who's going to lead us in the pledge. So if everyone would please rise. Michael, whenever you're ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. You may be seated. Michael, this is generally when we have an opportunity to ask you a couple questions. I just will tell the audience, I told Dad, I think earlier today I had the opportunity to visit Smithburg Elementary School. I walked into Michael's classroom, he came marching right straight up to me and said, "You're Mr. Michael?" And I said, "I am." He said, "I'll see you tonight." And I said, "All right, great." So, Michael, anything you want to share about Smithburg Elementary School or your class or your favorite subject?
My favorite subject is gym and social studies. And I like my school because everybody's really nice to everybody. And if you're sad or something, they always make you feel better.
Jim, in social studies, we have a couple social studies teachers on the board. How about guests that you brought with you tonight? Did you bring some guests?
I brought my dad and my principal.
Your dad and your principal? Okay, thank you for coming. Board members, any other comments or questions for Michael?
What do you do outside of school? You play any sports or have any hobbies or?
I like to be outside and playing outdoors, and I like to be at my grandfather's farm a lot and help out and do 4-H, and I enjoy Scouts.
You're a busy young man.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Well, Michael, we appreciate you coming tonight. Thank you for introducing yourself this morning. I can see great leadership potential in you for your future.
Thank you.
Again. Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written.
So move.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor? Looks like everyone's in favor, including our student rep. And closed session minutes for November 13th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I move for the approval of the closed session minutes dated Tuesday, November the 13th, 2018.
Thank you, Mr. Gusser. Second?
Second.
Ms. Bickford, all those in favor, please signify by saying, raising your right hand. All right, thank you. And then open session minutes for the 13th.
I move for the approval of the business minutes dated Tuesday, November 13th, 2018.
All those in favor of those minutes, please raise your right hand. Thank you. 7-0, including our student rep.
And I move for the approval of the joint meeting with delegation minutes dated Tuesday, December 4th, 2018.
All right, and second,
Second.
Mrs. Murray. Okay, all those in favor of those minutes, please raise your right hand. 6. Okay, Ms. Bickford, I don't believe you were there.
No, I wasn't there, so I'll abstain.
Okay, good, thank you. Okay, I think that's all of our minutes. At this time, we're going to hold our elections for President and Vice President of the Board of Education. So I'd entertain a motion for a nomination for President of the Board of Education.
I'd like to nominate Melissa Williams to return as President of the Board of Education.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Mrs. Murray? Are there other nominations? Seeing none, we'll proceed to the vote. All those in favor of Mrs. Williams to be President of the Board for the upcoming school year, please raise your right hand. Okay, 7-0, and student confers. Thank you. And then nominations for Vice President.
I would like to nominate Stanley Stauffer for the Vice President of the Board of Education.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bickford, thank you. Are there other nominations for Vice President? Seeing none, we'll proceed to the vote. Please raise your right hand for approval of Mr. Stauffer as Vice President. Okay. Mr. Stauffer, you going to vote against yourself, or you're abstaining?
No, just abstaining.
Okay, 6-0, the student agrees. And with that, Mrs. Williams, I think I turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Michael. All right, the next thing on our agenda, Dr. Michael, is the first part of the superintendent's report.
Okay, so we've had a number of grant award winners, teachers that have applied for grants, and I was approached by one of our local businesses that we hadn't taken advantage of a local grant for a while, and we encourage staff to seek opportunities with that, and we're pleased tonight to be able to award some checks to some individuals. And at this time, I'd like to call on Cody Pine and Mr. Sears and Mr. Klein to come forward to the table and just give us a brief description of the STEM grant. And in a few minutes, I'm going to ask the board, we'll go down front, we'll actually help present the checks with Mr. Sears. And then immediately following that, Eric Michael is going to come to the podium, and we're going to recognize some student athletes for some outstanding accomplishments with state championships right after this, after we recognize our teachers. So, Mr. Pine?
Thank you, Dr. Michael, members of the board. Tonight, I'm honored to have with me Mr. Jim Sears, the President of Maryland Operations for First Energy, and Mr. Dave Klein, the External Affairs Manager for First Energy. And tonight, Mr. Sears and Mr. Klein are going to award checks to and recognition of the First Energy Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics STEM Classroom Grant Awards. So I would like to, Mr. Sears, if you would just tell us a little bit about the grant.
Yeah, I think you were hot. You're
There
doing
you
good.
go. It's on now. I got a red light. Just pleased to be here this evening and be able to do this again. It's very important to us in our business as the local electric utility to support science, technology, engineering, and math in the classroom. And we do this in all our counties that we serve. And it's really a pleasure to be able to come here tonight and give 5 individual checks, almost totaling $5,000 for Washington County Public Schools and the great work that's being done in the classroom, educating our children in Washington County. So it's just a pleasure to be able to come here and do this evening. And of course, we do this each year, so the information can be found on our website for our foundation application, and we encourage teachers across the school district to continue to apply for these grants to help them in the classroom. So just a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And First Energy's been a huge help to us in a variety of opportunities, so not only with this, but with our internship program and quite a few other things that First Energy's helped us out with. So we're very appreciative of their contributions to our county and to our school system. So at this time, board members, I'd like to invite you to go down front. We're going to have Mr. Sears come forward and Mr. Klein, and then Mr. Pine, if you'd read off our awardees.
The first teacher on our list of grant recipients tonight is Stacy Hood from Williamsport Elementary with a $1,000 grant award. The next grant recipient is Elizabeth Rohr from Clear Spring High School for a $700 grant award. The next recipient is Bradley Stottlemyre from Washington County Technical High School for a $1,000 grant award. The next recipients would be Cynthia Logston and Chad Seacrest from Washington County Technical High School with a $520 grant award. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Tom Mazzoni from Clear Spring High School with a $1,000 grant award. Congratulations, award recipients.
This time, we're going to have Mr. Michael is going to recognize our students and our student athletes. And we're very excited about our 4 state championships here in Washington County. Very proud of our students. So students, after we finish each team, we're going to bring you in front of the board for a picture as well. Chris.
Okay, good evening. We have 4 different teams that we're presenting tonight. First team is going to be Boonesboro High School Boys Cross Country Team. They were the 1A state champions this year. Individuals will come up, you'll get a certificate and go across the front. I'll have to announce your name, and then wait over to this side until everyone, and then we'll come back up and get the whole team together, okay? All right, Stanley Allison. Colin Bear. Nicholas Co-Francesco. Will Daub. Josh Grubb. Gabe Judeman. Connor Lawrence. Donovan McClellan. Andrew Scalise. Henry Schmidt. And Andrew Simonson. And I'll introduce we have the Boonesboro girls here as well, but we'll do coaches with them. While we're getting ready to take the picture, this is the 3rd state title for Boonesboro High School in cross country. And we talk about these boys and the student athlete. We emphasize the student athlete. This team had a team GPA of 3.7. Congratulations. Okay, and Boonesboro girls cross country team, also the 1A state champions. This is a special group. This group are 4-time state champions in a row. So quite a feat for this girls. Congratulations. Members of the team that are with us tonight: Samantha Augustini, Kayla Often-Brink, Ellie Bear, Jenna Doak, Abby Gaver. Hannah Kirby. Mariana Lawrence. Ava Selby. And Cassidy Stupp. Coaches Aaron Kelly. And Sean Cutsell. Interesting fact, Becky Walter is traditionally our head coach, and Becky was out on maternity leave this fall, so Sean ran the team, so I think we had a conversation. He's the first assistant coach to be coach of the year for a team, so congratulations, Sean. Probably a little known fact for the girls, Boonesboro has 10, this year was their 10th state title. I said they've already had 4 in a row. 10 state titles places them second all time in the state behind Hereford, who has 12, so they're only 2 behind. So congratulations, girls. And their team GPA was a 3.82. Okay, congratulations, girls. Okay, next up, we had 2 volleyball teams win state championships this year. First up is Clear Spring. Clear Spring was the 1A state champions, and just a little bit of history with that. Usually we have Smithsburg in here. Smithsburg went through the season undefeated, and these girls took them to a 5-game set on their court and won for the section final. So that's a feat in itself. And 9 out of the last 10 years, I think it is, from 1A, state champion has been in Washington County. So team members, Mackenzie Moores, Valerie Dean, Mackenzie Slough, Zoe McCormick, Jenna Edwards, Chloe Mills, Zoe Breakall, Jessica McCauley, Anne-Marie Kemen, Skylar McAllister, Jordan Smith, Olivia Kirby, Kylie McKendrick, manager Maggie Possinger, and head coach Jessica Custer. And while they're coming back, getting lined up for their picture, this is Clear Springs' 4th appearance in a state championship tournament. They have 3 state titles. This will be the 3rd state title for them. And again, these girls are excellent students. Their team GPA was 3.58. And also here in the audience with them tonight is their athletic director, Bill Sterner, and Principal Scott Knoll is in the back. In Williamsport, Williamsport Wildcats, they were the 2018 2A state champion. So there's 4 classifications. Anybody that doesn't follow athletics, there's 4 classifications that you can compete in, 1A to 4A. Washington County took half of those, okay, which was very good this year. So congratulations to Washington County. I greatly appreciate that. Makes me look good. Okay, our individuals for Williamsport, Lauren Talton. Reagan Morris. Kirsten Klauser. Jenna Shank. Mackenzie Pryor. Mackenzie Shank. Kiara Lewis. Haley Kendall. Laika Michael. Sarah Herbert. Your coaches, Ashley Deemers. Terry Pryor. And head coach Karen Moyer. And while these girls are getting back in place for their pictures, Williamsport has 23 appearances in the state volleyball tournament, most in the state of anybody. With this state championship, it brings the total for Williamsport High School to 15, which is also the most of any school in the state of Maryland. And again, these girls are very much student athletes. Their team GPA is 3.85. Congratulations.
Wait a minute, you do it, Chris.
It's your turn. Get the other one.
With that, Mrs. Williams, that concludes my first part of the report.
Thank you, Dr. Michael. The next thing on our agenda is public comment. Excuse me. We have 2 individuals signed up. Mr. Stephen O'Farrell. As Mr. O'Farrell is approaching, I'd like to read from Board Policy KD regarding procedures at business meetings. Each person wishing to address the Board of Education is encouraged but not required to sign up prior to the meeting and may address any topic concerning Washington County Public Schools except personnel or student matters which clearly identify an individual or individuals. Each speaker may speak for up to 5 minutes. Is Mr. Farrell here?
He's taking his coat off.
Mr. Farrell, did you happen to hear what I was reading from our policy by any chance? That's Well, let me summarize quickly. You may address any topic with the exception of personnel or student matters which clearly identify an individual or individuals, and you have up to 5 minutes. Mr. Bickford is our timer. Mr. Bickford, would you like to explain the timing system?
This means you have 30 seconds left. Okay. And that means obvious. Stop.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Michael and board members. As it's been announced already, my name is Steve O'Farrell, and I'm currently the chairperson of your Special Education Citizens Advisory Committee, or CCAC, and I'm here sort of halfway through the school year to say that CCAC is alive and well. We are continuing to expand and continuing to take on some of the challenges that we're seeing in Washington County. We greatly appreciate the active involvement of Dr. Gladhill and Dr. Pugh, who attend our meetings on a regular basis, as well as Ms. Lynn Murray, who is usually in attendance as well. I'm here tonight because yesterday our executive committee traveled to Pasadena, Maryland, to hear a heartfelt and passionate offering by Marcella Frankowski, who's Assistant State Superintendent for Special Education. And she gave an offering of a current initiative that has been implemented in Maryland, known as the Raising the Bar Directive, or BERT 21. And it is a strategic plan to move Maryland forward to narrow the gap for access and equity and progress for all students of special education. And it was conveyed to us that the local CCACs are going to play a critical role in the implementation and rollout of this initiative. We took some stock in what we are doing locally. We feel that we are doing a pretty good job. We're doing a lot of the things that they're recommending that we do. Although at a lot of our meetings, we tend to have people that will show up with a specific issue that they want sort of mediated at that time, and it can be somewhat frustrating for those in attendance. And what we are charged to do is find more systemic issues or concerns that we can report to Dr. Gladhill or Dr. Michael, or those to raise awareness to. One of the things that we have found in our meetings is we do not necessarily have representation from all schools throughout the county and all areas of the county. We do have a lot of input from a lot of those that come on a regular basis, although we do not have a true representation, we believe, of what's going on county-wide. So with that, and also under one of the recommended directions of the seminar that we attended yesterday, we would like the opportunity to tour some of these schools, to see the good things that are happening in Washington County, and also to see some of the things that might not be so good, and to gain some perspective from all administrators and all stakeholders within the special education community. The second concern that we have that came out of this is funding. If the state's directive is to raise the bar, we will inevitably have to raise the budget or find ways to raise the bar in Washington County. It was brought to our attention yesterday that local funding plays a significant role in the equation of educational funding, and we are certainly going to take a position of advocacy to raise local funding here in Washington County. Along with that, we were also told that there was going to be a county comparison to be published soon by MSDE that will clearly show which counties prioritize education and which ones do not through their level of funding. So stay tuned for that. And finally, it has been brought to our attention over and over again at many of our meetings that the line between special education and general education is being blurred, as general education teachers are finding a growing number of students with behavioral or social challenges filling their classrooms, along with students that are diploma bound that may have IEPs or other accommodations. We do not want to leave the general education teachers out of this conversation. We feel that they have valuable input that will help us in order to make some real credible suggestions to Jeff and you as well. We do not want to leave them out of the conversation. The way we see it is we are all in this together, and for us to make some good positive change, we need to all have our voices heard. So in conclusion, I greatly appreciate the time to speak with you all tonight, and we look forward to raising the bar for all students in Washington County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell.
You're welcome.
Mr. Neil Becker.
Good evening. Thank you. Oh, I can't see. I'm sorry. Good evening, President Williams and Dr. Michael and board members. Congratulations, too, to Mrs. Fisher and Mr. Gesford and Mrs. Murray as you begin your new terms on the elected board. I wish you well and remind you to keep the lines of communication open. If you ever have anything to discuss, anything related to education and the success of our students and staff, please reach out. Congratulations, too, to our state champions. They, based on how empty the room is, most of them have left. They probably have a lot of homework to do based on their GPAs, but congratulations to them and their coaches. And they should, I hope, are proud of their accomplishments and their ability to balance academics and athletics. They're great examples of really student athletes, and I commend them for that. I also commend Mr. O'Farrell for taking time out to speak with you this evening, and ironically or coincidentally, we have similar topics in terms of funding, but I commend the work of CCAC and all of our Citizens Advisory Councils for what they're doing for our students, because they represent our entire community and all students, and it's a small network of parents and advocates who do that for the good of all 22,000 students. Tonight I follow up on an invitation I mailed to you, sent to your addresses about a week ago. WCTA members will be among about 10,000 public education advocates in Annapolis on March 11, 2019. As both WCPS and WCTA advocated for a fully funded budget last spring, we're doing so again this year, and I know the budget will be rolling out very soon. Our effort locally can transition to advocacy on the state level, and I invite you and any community members and advocates and educators to join us as we head to Annapolis in March. Reach out to me directly at our association office or via email, and we could certainly find a way for you to join us. And finally, as I discussed budget advocacy, I reiterate my willingness and the willingness of WCTA members to work collaboratively with Dr. Michael and the elected board during this budget season. Dr. Michael and his team met with a team of association leaders again this week. We're all on the same page, and it's about moving students forward. As Mr. O'Farrell mentioned, raising the bar. Please stay in touch this budget season, but throughout the year, as we can work together with our county commissioners and with our state delegation to secure the funding needed for our students. They deserve our advocacy, and together we can get our students everything they need at the local but also at the state level. Thank you for your time. Best wishes for a safe and enjoyable holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. At this time, we'll have board member response to public comment. Any board members wish to respond?
I just want to thank Mr. O'Farrell for coming. It was actually very gratifying to hear some of the issues that you identified are some of the same issues that this board has been discussing. So it's wonderful to know that there's an organized group of parents who are just as concerned. And I did take note of what you said about sometimes the meetings that they talk about individual cases, and I know that's challenging to do. Is there any what do we do in that situation? If somebody's at a meeting and wants to communicate on an individual case, they can't do that publicly, but what can we do as staff?
Yeah, our recommendation is not to do that publicly, just, for confidentiality reasons of the child, the student, the parent, or if our response might be something that would violate any of the confidentiality rules, but certainly in any kind of public setting. If you need reference to, want to talk to me or want to talk to one of the staff members, in this case, maybe Mr. Gladhill, Dr. Pugh, others. So we would recommend the staff take an individual request directly to maybe one of my direct reports, or again, I'd be glad to talk to somebody and get them directed to where we can get the most help. But we're always cautious when we're talking about individual students, or our responses definitely have to be limited to any type of public forum. So that's how I would recommend handling something like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to say the same thing that Peter said. Thank you, Mr. O'Farrell, for coming and talking to us about the Special Ed Citizens Advisory Committee. I think you play an important part, and we thank you for everything that you do. And also, Neil Becker, for continuing to fight with us for the funding. We appreciate that, because that's, we all need to work together to continue to get funding for the education of our students. So thank you very much.
All right, we'll move on to old business. We have 2 items of old business this evening. Our first item is the consideration of the second reading of proposed changes to Policy DJ, Purchasing Standards. Mr. Trotta, good evening.
Good evening. On November 13th, the Board of Education approved the first reading of the proposed changes to Policy DJ, which is entitled Purchasing Standards. By way of background, it was necessary to update this policy because recently there was a change in the Maryland state law that now provides that certain items that must be competitively bid, the threshold number has been raised from $25,000 to $50,000. The Policy Committee is recommending that particular change to this policy. It also made several minor adjustments to the current policy. And at this point in time, the Policy Committee is requesting the Board of Education to approve the second reading of the proposed changes to Policy DJ. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trotta. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the second reading of proposed changes to Policy DJ, which is entitled Purchasing Standards.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Any discussion, questions for Mrs. Fisher or Mr. Trotta? Mrs. Fisher, was there anything that you wanted to say about this policy?
Obviously, this is dictated by the state. It's a change, and we've had to comply with it. The other minor changes were just correcting a little grammatical something or other here and there.
Okay. The motion is to approve the second reading of proposed changes to Policy DJ entitled Purchasing Standards. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, we're unanimous, and the student member concurs. Motion carries. Okay, our second item of old business is the second reading of proposed changes to Policy ECB, Use of School Facilities, Signs.
Thank you. On November 13th, the Board of Education approved the proposed changes to Policy ECB, which will have a new title, which is Signs Placed in or on School Buildings or on School Grounds. During the first reading, Board Member Gesford brought to our attention a conversation that he had with the Board of Elections regarding the placement of political signs during the election time period. Staff followed up with the Board of Elections, and we examined a section of Maryland law that governs the placement of signs for elections. The Policy Committee considered this matter at its most recent public work session, and it is recommending that the board policy be aligned with the recently updated state law, which provides as follows. Campaign signs are allowed on the premises of a public building from 5 p.m. the day immediately preceding Election Day and until 8 a.m. on the day immediately following Election Day. The Policy Committee is recommending that the board approve the second reading of the proposed changes to this policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trotta. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy ECB entitled Use of School Facilities Signs. Thank you, Mrs. Fisher.
Is there a second?
Thank you, Mr. Wright.
Now, any discussion or questions? Mrs. Fisher?
I have some concerns. At this point, I'm really recommending that we pass this because it meets the needs of the changes that the election board has made. But I have some concerns about using these established times because 5 o'clock, we still have students in school, sports teams, club meetings, and so on. And I think that we shouldn't have the people running in and out, and the cars coming in and out, putting up signs while we still have students there also coming in and out of the driveways. In addition, I think that 8 o'clock in the morning is too late to have people coming in and out again, picking up signs. Some of our schools begin before 8 a.m. However, for now, as I said, we have to go along with what the state election board is saying. But I would recommend, or I would like to have perhaps a discussion with our delegation about taking a look at these hours, these times.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. Anyone else?
Mrs. Williams, I can share some of the legislative history.
Certainly.
And surprisingly, when the Board of Education initially adopted its policy on the placement of signs, and in particular political signs, there was no state law. In 2013, they enacted a state law which had some time frames in there. And then most recently in 2017, they updated the state law. And as we understand, there was quite a bit of debate in Annapolis about when the signs could be posted, with most of the elected officials wanting it to be posted earlier than was previously set forth in 2013. Based on my reading of the law, the changing of the time frames would require legislation in Annapolis to change the time periods. So that would require some legislative action.
Thank you, Mr. Trotta. Any further discussion or any questions? Okay, then we'll move to the motion. The motion is to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy ECB entitled Use of School Facilities Signs. All those in favor? Okay. Unanimous. Student member concurs. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Trotta. And you're going to stay with us for the...
Yes, I am. I would ask Mr. Havlin and Mr. Platt to join me here at the front.
Okay, this is our first item of new business this evening, retention of outside legal counsel.
Yes. And these gentlemen are partners in the firm of Hallivan and Hallivan Hughes. And I'd just like to offer some introductory comments, and then they will provide a briefing on some litigation. We'll switch mics. By way of background, the Washington County Board of Education provides a comprehensive health care plan for its employees. And this coverage includes medications. This is a self-insured program, meaning that the Board of Education pays 100% of the cost of any medical cost or prescription. The cost is shared as follows. The Board of Education pays 85% of the cost of the health care plan, and the employees contribute 15% towards these costs. It came to our attention that one particular medication, which at one point in time cost only $40 per vial, now has increased to at least $40,000 per vial. There is a case that's currently pending in the city of Rockford, Illinois, contesting this particular type of pricing mechanism. And Mr. Hallivan and Mr. Platt will now provide you with an overview of that pending litigation. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Michael, President Williams, members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to address this body and the public about what in my lifetime is the most egregious drug pricing scheme that we have ever seen. And I don't say that lightly. I've been practicing law nearly 30 years. Our firm specializes in this area. We're a boutique practice with a national practice around the country. So we have been litigating against prescription drug companies for many, many years. But what Mr. Trott has said should make everyone pause and think. $40 to $40,000 over the span of a very short period of time. And to put that in context, how we came to this situation was that drug had been made in 1953. It was actually invented by the Armour Hot Dog Company, and they discovered that if you took a portion of the pituitary gland of a pig and injected it in a baby, you could save babies' lives. So it's a tremendous product, and we're not challenging the efficacy of the medication, but there are only 2,000 babies in the country each year that get this diagnosis and this disease. What this company did was bought the product for $100,000 and then turned it into a $6 billion franchise by raising the price. And then they decided to start marketing to adults and the teachers in this county school system. And unfortunately, you've gotten caught in the crosshairs of this problem of what we call specialty medications. So for the public's edification, we all know about brand name medications. It's what you see on advertised television. And we all know about generics. You can walk into Walmart and pay $4 for generics. Well, this is a different class of drugs. They're called specialty medications. And in the last decade since this problem began, these drugs, these special drugs, have been taken from very reasonable prices to exorbitant prices. And there's some famous people out there. The guy by the name of Shkreli, who's now in prison, started this gouging model. And this company that we're proposing to sue has followed that model. And so what we're proposing to do is to push back and finally push back on the drug companies to stop price gouging. And we're proposing to do it state by state, county by county, payer by payer. So our firm was hired by the city of Rockford, Illinois, and we're based out of Philadelphia. We're Philadelphia lawyers, as some people still think means something, but we litigate to try cases and to resolve them successfully and to make change. And if anyone saw the 60 Minutes piece that Leslie Stahl did a couple of months ago, the mayor was very offended by the fact that 2 children in that city were affected by this situation, and they spent $500,000. Well, this county has spent much more than that, and that's why we're inviting you to join that fight. And you're not alone. We represent municipal payers from Florida to Maine, as far out as Nebraska. We're talking to some folks in California. And what we're trying to create is critical mass, to have self-funded payers push back against this problem and this company and tell them, not here, not now. And one thing that we expect to do is not only resolve the case successfully and get money back to the county, which I'm sure is going to be well needed for funding some of these great initiatives that you have here, but also we're going to get some information, and we're going to hopefully get a declaration that it's wrong and a stoppage of it through an injunction and force the company to go back to what's reasonable. And by doing that, you will have drawn a line in the sand and told the drug companies that specialty is just special to the tune where it was. And this was a $40 medication that eventually went to about $1,600, and we wouldn't be talking if that's what it was. We'd gladly pay for that to help the teachers in this county. But $40,000 and upwards of that, and there are some prices we've seen $80,000. Now, mind you, it's the same medication, so you have to pause and wonder, how can you charge one baby $40,000 and an adult teacher $80,000? It's the same medication, in the words of Shkreli, because they can. But the court system is the great equalizer. So in our 3 branches of government, you got the president, the Congress, and administrative bodies, but the courts are where we level the playing field. And we can bring them here to this county and answer for that. And we have a wonderful, wonderful statute here in Maryland, the consumer fraud law, that says if it's unfair and deceptive, you could be held accountable. Well, I think on its face it's unfair. And we're looking forward to letting a jury decide that question if you give us that opportunity. And I thank you.
Yes. The request we have of the board this evening and recommendation is that we retain this firm to institute a lawsuit in the Circuit Court for Washington County to recover the damages that we have sustained and also to seek injunctive relief. And that's the recommendation. I think there might be some questions, and we're certainly open to questions.
Do we have a motion first?
Madam President, I move to approve retaining the law firm of Haviland Hughes to represent the Board of Education in litigation involving the manufacturer of Actar and other parties.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. Now we can have some discussion or questions. Mike, or Mr. Gessford, excuse me.
Sorry. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming down and being with us tonight. A couple of questions that I have for you. This is 2 questions, and I'll just give them both to you. What would be the cost to the school system for Washington County? And secondly, who benefits from the successful litigation?
I'll take them in that order. It's very simple. So we are a contingent law firm. Our retainer agreement is 100% contingent, so it will cost the county nothing. We expect to be successful, but in the event that we aren't, all the costs of the litigation will be borne by the law firm with no requirement on the county's part to pay any cost. That includes filing fees to expert costs, all the costs of litigation, which in this space are fairly significant. Experts being the biggest charge. They can charge hundreds of thousands of dollars to litigate these claims. So the answer is zero, and it will be zero from the beginning to the end. Now, the recovery is 100% yours. And we hope to get 100 cents on the dollar in terms of what your overcharge is. We think the overcharge, based on what you paid, is upwards of 90%, based on the scenario I just gave you. And we have a very good economist who's already sponsored that theory. So we believe we'll be successful on that. And all those dollars come back to the county, net of the cost that we're going to have to incur in the case, and an attorney's fee that's in our retainer agreement, which is a reduced fee that we've entered into with every county and every city and municipal plaintiff across the country, and it's the exact same rate that we charged everyone. Our attorney's fees and our costs are added to the recovery under the statute. That's one of the advantages you have with the legislation that we have here, the consumer fraud law. So the recovery adds then to it the attorney's fees and costs. So our hope is that it would be 100% net to the county, your recovery.
Thank you.
Any other, Mrs. Murray?
Other than monetary recovery, which would be great, what other results do you hope to see from this case?
I tell clients all the time, one of the great advantages of being on this side of the V, the plaintiff versus defendant, you're at the table, you're involved, and this body will be able to see what we see, learn what we learn. What that means is we're going to see inside the secret sauce of how they've done this. We're going to learn how this model was put together. It's going to allow this body to be a better, more prudent purchaser going forward. Unfortunately, I think what we're seeing is the new normal. If you listen to the television, you're hearing all about these wonderful medications that are coming out with these tremendous costs. Hepatitis C, $100,000. A cancer medication by Novartis, $450,000. Now, you can step back and say that's a great value, and we can get behind that because it's life-saving. But when you have a situation like this, an old medication that's been around forever, 65 years, that they took from $40 to $80,000, you have to wonder what's wrong there. So we're hoping to give you that information that we'll get through what's called discovery. We get to ask the defendants all kinds of questions. We get to put the executives under oath. They have to swear. They get to be videotaped. We could put them before you. And you're going to get a lot of answers to questions that we can't now answer. I think the county's done a tremendous job with the administrative staff of being a very good purchaser. What we do is we come in the back end after you've tried your best to get good pricing and you find something like this falls through the cracks. We're going to help you not do that again so that you're a more prudent purchaser as you move forward so that the next Actar, whatever that might be, and it probably hasn't been dreamed up yet, you'll avoid that or at least tamp down that cost going forward.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Mr. Pickford?
What will the role of our legal staff be in this process?
So we try to have a light footprint. We take pride in the fact that we bring in a team of people to help with the questions that will be asked of the defendants of the county. So certainly they're going to want to know about our purchasing, our plan. Nothing about the patients, by the way. It's not about the efficacy, so it's not a concern of the teachers. It's just what we paid for it. And we'll work with the staff here to make sure that when we have to come in and pull that information, it's done at times when it's not a busy time of the year, hopefully a summertime. We do have to answer those questions, but we expect to take the load off of Mr. Trotta's office, but obviously give him any type of updates he wants on a periodic basis so he can advise his board where we are. And ultimately, it's your decision whether to settle the case or litigate the case. We're going to bring you the offers to decide, is that fair? I suspect at some point we're going to get an offer because we're pushing, and we're pushing on a lot of fronts. And when a company pays $100 million, you know their checkbook's open. The question is, how far is it open? So that's the conversation that we'll have with Mr. Trotta first, and then bring it to your board.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
And your best guesstimate of the length of this process?
So that's the million-dollar question, right? So how long does litigation take? And I try to be brutally honest with clients. This type of litigation takes anywhere from 2 to 5 years. The good news is the Rockford case has been going on for 2 years. We filed it just after that indictment in January 2017. So we come up on the second calendar year, and the judge there has ordered a very aggressive schedule for discovery. We start in January. We're getting the depositions from the government. We're getting the documents from the government by February. So Washington County is going to be right there with the Rockford case. So our hope is 2019 is a really good year, but my best guess would be 2020 at worst, because we're going to try to get the case on track and discovered by September. And if we can get a trial date here early in 2019, so October, November, my partner likes to say it's the hot breath of the trial that makes everyone get real serious. So if they have to come here and try the case, I think that checkbook opens up a little bit. But 2020 is realistic on the pathway that we've seen, but we're really hoping for 2019.
Thank you.
Anything further? Okay, the motion is to approve retaining the law firm of Haviland Hughes to represent the Board of Education in litigation involving the manufacturer of Acthar and other parties. All those in favor? All right, we're unanimous, and the student member concurs. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mr. Trotta, I think you're staying still? For our first item of new business, we have consideration of the first reading of proposed changes to policy BDF, advisory committees to the Board of Education, and proposed changes to exhibit BDF-E2, Calendar Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Policy BDF governs the work and membership of the various advisory committees that the Board of Education has established. Currently, there are 9 standing committees that serve in an advisory capacity to the Board of Education. The Policy Committee is offering 2 proposed changes to this policy. The first change is merely the updating of the purpose clause. The second change is that an individual may not serve on more than one standing advisory committee at a given time. This second change, if adopted by the Board of Education, would not apply to individuals who may be currently serving on advisory boards, but would only apply in the case of new appointments after the policy is adopted. The second part of the recommended changes by the Policy Committee concerned the Calendar Committee, and the Policy Committee is recommending that there be certain changes to the membership specifications in that particular exhibit. The changes are intended to broaden the membership of the committee to include representatives from different geographic areas across the county. And I welcome any comments or questions.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy BDF entitled Advisory Committees to the Board of Education. You are taking one at a time, right?
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Questions, comments? Mrs. Fisher, did you want to speak to this?
Not really. I think it's,
Okay.
it's pretty simple changes.
Anyone have any questions? I have just a question regarding under policy statement number 4C, the change, standing advisory committee members may only serve on one standing advisory committee at a time. I guess I'm interested in knowing the rationale behind that. I guess I'm of the mind that if it isn't broken, you don't try to fix it. I can see it perhaps a time when we don't have many people coming forth to want to serve on advisory committees, or people who may have multiple skill sets and talents that could lend themselves to serving on our committees. So I'm just curious to know what the rationale was for making that change.
I believe, again, it's to try to get a wider representation across the county, rather than we have a number of people that serve on multiple committees at this time, and they would not be affected, but it would going forward alter that.
Anyone else? Okay, so the motion is to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy BDF entitled Advisory Committees to the Board of Education. All those in favor? All right, we're unanimous and the student member concurs. Motion carries. Mrs. Fisher, would you like to do the second motion?
I move to approve the first reading of proposed changes to Exhibit BDF-E2, which is entitled Calendar Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, any questions? Okay. Motion is to approve the first reading of proposed changes to Exhibit BDF-E2 entitled Calendar Advisory Committee. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, we're unanimous and the student member concurs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trotta. Okay, our next item of new business is consideration of the consent agenda. Mr. Bakeville? Good evening.
Good evening, President Williams, board members, Dr. Michael. Tonight I have 5 items for your review and 1 informational item on an emergency procurement. These items were reviewed by our Procurement Review Committee and are being recommended for approval, and staff is available if you have any additional questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bakeville. Is there a motion?
President Williams. I move to approve the awards and renewals for employee benefits consulting services to Arthur J. Gallagher and Company at a total cost of $540,000 for the first term of the contract. Hardwood mulch to the mulch man at the unit prices listed. School furniture to Doron Incorporated at a cost of $97,735.84. Music education programs and services to the Maryland Symphony Orchestra at a cost of $53,765, and servers for North Hagerstown, South Hagerstown, Marshall Street, and Boonesboro technology clusters to Applied Technology Services at a cost of $877,600.28.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stafford.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Gessler?
Yeah.
I thought I heard you.
I did, but you got me first.
Okay. Mr. Gessler has seconded the motion. Any questions for Mr. Bakeville or any discussion? Mr. Gessler?
I only have one question, and that would be for Dr. Michaels concerning this. And we have wonderful people that sit down and write grants. I noticed that the Symphony Orchestra is $53,000. Is it possible maybe in the future we might look into maybe doing some grants with them, or being able to pay through that instead of our general fund, maybe look into grants for that? I mean, I know a lot of times you can get musical grants to cover this, and I didn't know if we ever looked into it or if it isn't feasible.
Yeah, we have individual teachers that have sought out and secured various types of music grants. And obviously through state funding, there's some grants that we apply for and secure. This is a partnership with the Symphony where they provide a whole host of different types of educational opportunities for our students. We've done it for a long while. We've kind of pared that down to what we believe will be the most significant for our students at this point. And it's a good partnership, but we always can explore alternative funding, and we certainly can work on that.
Yeah, I don't want to get rid of it. I just want to see if there's an opportunity, because we do have great grant writers here that, might be able to look into that just for future reference.
Okay. The motion is on acceptance of tonight's consent agenda as read by Mrs. Murray. All those in favor? All right, did you have your hand up, sir?
No, I'm going to abstain because I serve on the board of directors for the symphony.
Thank you. So we have 6 affirmative votes, the student member concurs, and Mr. Bickford has abstained. Thank you, Mr. Batesville.
Thank you.
It was hard for me to see whether you had your hand up or not. Okay, our next item on the agenda is a donation in the amount of $70,000 to Williamsport High School from the Williamsport High School Athletic Boosters Club. Dr. Akers, good evening.
Good evening, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Michael. I'm here on behalf of Williamsport High School to request your approval of a very generous $70,000 donation from the the Williamsport High School Athletic Boosters Club. These funds will be used to build an enclosed batting facility. And thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Dr. Akers. Is there a motion?
Let's make the motion.
I will do so. Thank you, Mr. Beckford, for giving me the honor. To approve move to approve a donation in the amount of $70,000 to Williamsport High School from the Williamsport High School Athletic Booster Club with stipulations that include a Title IX review, design, and construction cost at or below the value of the donation, and approval from the local code officials as required.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Any discussion, any questions? Mrs. Fisher?
I'm wondering where we are on the payments for the enlargement of the athletic facility at Williamsport that occurred a couple years ago. Has that been paid off yet, or are there ongoing payment? Do you happen to know?
No, I don't happen to know. I'd have to.
To my knowledge, that as far as any involvement that the Washington County Board of Education had, we were paid off right up front with the project, with the donation. They had a local backer, but to my knowledge, I believe they've even paid their local backer off.
Jeff concurs.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Stauffer?
What's this $70,000 going to be used for? I see Title IX in there and everything, so it leads me to believe it's a team room or something for the girls? Or?
Oh, no, it's an enclosed batting facility. So it could be used by both the boys' baseball team and the girls' softball team. But it's so that you're out of the weather, so it allows you to, do batting, because as you know very well, the spring sports, it can sometimes be pretty tough getting batting practice or any kind of baseball practice in. So it's to help with both baseball and softball. I mean, it would be available to both.
Any plans to where that'll be situated on the campus?
Where the current batting facility
The
is.
boys thing is for the girls?
Yeah, where the boys is right
Okay,
now, yes.
all right.
Any other questions? All right, the motion is to approve a donation in the amount of $70,000 to Williamsport High School from the Williamsport High School Athletic Booster Club with stipulations that include a Title IX review, design and construction costs at or below the value of the donation, and approval from the local code official as required. All those in favor? All right, we're unanimous. Student member concurs. Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Akers.
And I apologize. I read the motion when I went over this material at home and didn't go down to the executive summary of the content.
All right, our next item under consideration is the first quarter FY 2019 budget adjustment. Good evening, Mr. Brandenburg.
Good evening, President Williams, members of the board, and Dr. Michael. As you know, from time to time, we do bring you quarterly budget adjustments, and we are now looking at the first quarter for FY19. The adjustments this quarter are minimal and reflect wishes of various directors to redirect funds from one category to the other. Because these cross major budget categories, they will require your approval and the approval of the county commissioners. I'll be glad to take any questions.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to approve the proposed FY 2019 first quarter budget adjustments as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Gessler. Questions for Mr. Brandenburg or discussion? Mrs. Fisher?
I would just like to thank you for the new slightly altered format. Makes it easier to read.
Good, I'm glad you like that.
Mr. Bickford?
And I'm also pleased that part of these budget adjustments is making it possible to add more paraprofessionals to our staff. We've seen a greater need in the county, especially adding pre-K, so it's wonderful to have these new staff members to support our teachers and students.
Okay, the motion is to approve the proposed FY 2019 first quarter budget adjustments as presented. All those in favor are unanimous, and the student member concurs. Thank you, Mr. Brandenburg. Next item is the 2019-2020 middle school and high school program of studies. Dr. Pugh. Good evening.
So annually, we bring before you changes to what we now have in middle school, a program of studies for students and parents, and a high school program of studies. We use this publication to inform parents and students about the requirements as they enter the next level of study. So for our fifth grade students, they'll get a copy of the middle school program of studies and review it and be able to have that information to refer to through the middle school years. And we've done, for a number of years, a program of studies for the high school because we want to make sure that families and students have all of the opportunities that are available to them, all of the current information about what their graduation requirements are. And tonight we're here to ask for approval for the 2019-2020 middle and high school programs of study. There were some general changes that were made. The first is that we've been asked to call our assessment program MCAP, the Maryland Comprehensive Assessment Program. At this time, it hasn't changed. The assessments are currently still PARCC and MESA, but we do anticipate some changes. So we've made those edits in the book on page 1. In our gifted and talented education, we've also had new legislation, and the annotated code is referenced for you, that defines what gifted and talented education is and really puts additional requirements on the county in terms of how we identify, and those recommendations are currently up for review in public, but we've included the actual definitions which have been approved. They're on pages 7 and 8 in your high school program of study. So because the middle school program of study was new last year for the first time, we had very few middle school additions and deletions, enough to fit on one page. So we are adding the IB Middle Years program courses for Northern Middle School because they're going through a process now to be an accredited IB Middle Years program, and so they needed a unique identifier for those courses for all of the English, math, science, and social studies courses that they would take. We've also deleted Magnet Grade 8 Algebra simply because Magnet Algebra is now offered in 7th grade, and we now offer Magnet Grade 8 Geometry. So that is allowing students to accelerate their mathematics. And then finally, we're deleting the AVID program from Springfield Middle School because they're no longer offering that program to students. In the I hope I didn't turn it off. In the high school, we had a number of additions. We have a new course at Boonesboro High School. First time it'll be running. It's AP Comparative Government and Politics. It's actually a course where they're taking 5 different countries and comparing the politics to the United States. That description can be found on page 35 in the high school program of studies. And then another new exciting opportunity for students is the Marine Science and Oceanography course. Currently now our students are required to take 3 science courses for graduation, and we know we have students that go into these fields that would like to continue in higher ed in these areas. So we're trying to meet the needs of students to give them additional science opportunities beyond what is required. We've also added the IB Environmental Systems and Societies. This would be a standard level course that integrates science and social studies offered only at Boonesboro High School, North Hagerstown High School, where the IB program is. And then finally, the Cisco IT Academy, Washington County Technical High School. In the course descriptions, you'll see a lot of acronyms. Those acronyms all refer to different certifications that students can leave those programs with. We also added some programs at individual schools this year, coming for the next year. South Hagerstown High School and Smithsburg High School have both asked to add carpentry. South High has asked to add the Teaching Academy of Maryland, which is a positive move, and Boonesboro High School Homeland Security. And then in general, we've offered the Apprenticeship Maryland program is now a graduation pathway that's acceptable for students as a career and technical education pathway. And we've added a math intervention at the high school level. What we've deleted at the high school level, Algebra 1A, all students will begin with Algebra 1 in high school. And I'll explain a little bit more about what our plan is for students who are not quite ready. We have also are deleting Chinese 1 and 2. Those courses are no longer offered at South Hagerstown High School. And then World Language and Science. We had courses in both World Language and Science where some were 2-credit options and some were 1-credit options, and it didn't seem to make sense now that we have a schedule that is very uniform with a 6-period day with year-long core content courses. There's not as much need for the 2-credit options. So equity among courses and schools, all of those courses are made as one.
The Chinese, is that, we took that out of the book?
Yes.
Was
Yes.
there a reason we took it out of the book? What was the reason for that other than maybe couldn't get a teacher?
Teacher.
But does that make sense to take it out?
It is something, what we try to do is keep current with what's actually available. I mean, we could add it at any point when we have a teacher available, and if the school decides that's a program that they'd like to do. I know our world language supervisor would like to continue to see languages expand. So it's only to show incoming ninth graders that Chinese is not an option at South High. So we try to stay accurate with what we actually are offering, and they didn't offer it this year either. Intermediate algebra. The intermediate algebra is a discussion that we had at the Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting, where we're offering Algebra 1. All students will go through that, and then instead of offering an Algebra 1B, this is an intermediate algebra, which would allow students who passed the course but did not pass the associated requirement for graduation, the assessment, would allow them to do the bridge projects as a remediation, potentially retake the graduation requirement assessment, and extend into Algebra 2 to prep them and get them pre-ready for the Algebra 2 course. And then engineering at Technical High School, we're adding the introduction of mechatronics, robotics, the programmable logic for the machine control you've seen in the Innovation Center, or you soon will see in the Innovation Center.
If I may, the Innovation Center has changed quite a bit. This week, our mechatronics lab was delivered, and I just got a little preview with it when we had the delegation up from the Eastern Shore. We had a lot of neat opportunities for our students: hydraulics, electronics, robotic arm, and a conveyor belt, and all types of things. I mean, it's just really, really exciting. So I asked Cody Pine if we can't visit there, maybe we'll do a 5-minute video clip, have some students come and share that with us at an upcoming board meeting. There's still a lot of training yet to go and some things like that, but that room is finally really taking shape, taking shape.
And those things are out of the box, and the kids can actually see what they are now. And I know we have our team to thank for helping us put them together, because they were not easy, slot A into slot A. It was pretty technical in terms of preparing. And then finally, the last of our changes, these are the specific courses that went down to 1 AP credit, AP Biology, Chemistry, and AP World. We actually talked to the principals and to the instructors, and what was happening before was there was an imbalance. So biology and chemistry, we offered a 2-credit option, but we didn't in physics. So students were not taking physics, even if that was a course that they probably should have taken. So we tried to go with the equity idea for 1 credit. And then music fundamentals was added prior to AP Music Theory because the students actually going into AP Music Theory needed more time to get the fundamentals before they accomplished the AP exam. So that was a purposeful design. And at that point, we'll take any questions. I have Michelle Harmon here to answer any math science specific questions that I couldn't answer. And if we can't answer, we'll get back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Pugh. Is there a motion?
President Williams, I move to approve the 2019-2020 middle and high schools program of studies.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Questions? Yes.
Why is Avid being deleted from Springfield Middle? And what was the process that was going through to reach that decision? It seems to me Springfield Middle is a school that needs that program.
So AVID as you probably are aware, is a highly accountable program. We have visits from the AVID company in order to call it AVID, and we have training that we needed. And I think what they saw was a lot of turnover in terms of the people who were trained and the ability to sustain it at the level that it needed to be in order to earn certification to be called an AVID program. I don't think they're changing their practices in what they do and how they prepare students. I think they're still going to do many of the things, the school-wide note-taking, some of the strategies. They just didn't have the consistent personnel to make sure that they were running it. So that was a school-based decision.
And how many schools do we have Avid?
Currently, right now, we have one more middle school that is AVID certified.
I have one other question. The other year, I was approached by a high school parent whose child attended a county high school, and there was a question about the fact that at one school, band got an AP credit or something, but at the school where their child attended, it wasn't. And the parent was inquiring because the child finished like just a few thousandths of a point below for valedictorian. And has that discrepancy been answered? Is it standard throughout the all county high schools now?
So it's more standard than it ever has been with the 6-period day and with making sure that they have described programs that they are able to select from. So each school does pick what programs they are able to offer based upon what their students need and what their students are requesting. But in terms of how band is running specifically, I'd really need to look at more information between the two schools. Because in general, I will tell you that there are band courses that are available to all schools to select from, and it's set up very much like what it was with the World Language and Science so that we don't have the inequity between schools. So if you have specific information about those schools, maybe you and I can follow up.
I'd have to go recontact the individual again, because I can't
AP
remember.
would be required to follow the AP syllabus, national syllabus, College Board. We'd be required to do that to offer an AP credit. We as a county, and by your approval of this book, describe what's weighted credit, what's not weighted credit. So all those types of things should be standard across the county.
It may have been that something about, I'll have to contact him, because I know him, the father. Something about the fact that at one high school, the band credit was weighted, and where his daughter attended was not weighted or something.
Which really shouldn't.
Difference in a course
Yeah.
title or name or hopefully curriculum
I'll
as well.
recheck that, just to,
Okay, sure, we'll follow up.
I'll contact the gentleman.
Any other questions?
Just curious, since we're improving the math classes offered at middle school, if I take a magnet algebra and a magnet geometry, do I get high school credit for that, or do I still have to take the 4 credits in high school?
You do get high school credit for that, and you still have to take the 4 high school credits in math.
Okay,
Yeah.
no problem. And the other question I had, I was intrigued by the marine science oceanography. Since we have the National Aquarium in Maryland, is there any opportunities to utilize that?
Yeah, I think there are. I think they're looking at as many opportunities as we can to use the environmental areas that we have to feed these courses with real experiences.
Great.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Mrs. Murray.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Dr. Pugh and her staff for putting together these great programs of study for the middle school and high school. I think it makes it easier for students and parents to see the courses that are available, and I can tell you put a lot of hard work into this. I'm excited about the new additions, and especially the Teaching Academy of Maryland at South High, because we talk about needing teachers and growing our own, and I think this is a good place to start. So thank you for your hard work. Thank you.
I echo Mrs. Murray's comments. I too am pleased to see the Teaching Academy at South Hagerstown High School, and I'm curious to know if you have any idea of how many students could be accommodated.
No, we actually have a teacher there right now who is doing the child care program, who's very excited and perfectly capable of transitioning once with training to take on a first group of students. So as many as can fit in that first class, we believe she can roll up with those students.
Great. Anyone else? Okay, so the motion is to approve the 2019-2020 middle and high schools program of studies. All those in favor? All right. Unanimous, and the student member concurs. Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Pugh. Dr. Michael, we're back to you for the second half of the superintendent's report.
While Maureen's coming forward, just a couple announcements. We did have some other grant award recipients. I wanted to recognize some of our teachers who applied for grants. So Gettysburg Natural Alliance grant awardees. We had teachers Shelley Embry from Eastern Elementary, Laura Folk from Eastern Elementary, Scott Wildeson from McKay Dowd, Brittany Collins from Salem Avenue Elementary, and Stephanie Holzhofer from Salem Avenue. All secured grants from Gettysburg, and we're pleased that they were able to do that and provide. They participated in some professional development, and they'll use some lessons from what they learned at their professional development opportunity in their classroom. Also tomorrow, we have a number of counselors, middle school and high school counselors, that are going to tour 3 of our local industries. This is kind of a little bit of a partnership from the state. We were contacted and asked if we would kind of expand our interest in helping counselors understand what job opportunities there would be for students in the future, particularly in manufacturing. So we're taking advantage of that, and I'm really pleased that we have a number of counselors signed up to go tomorrow, and I hope to join them for at least one of their stops. So that's something to look forward to tomorrow. Tonight, we have a couple updates. So our first update is our ACT and SAT data update. There was some concern about a delay. There was no delay in our SAT or ACT data, just a matter of getting it on the agenda with a pretty full agenda the last couple months. So we're pleased to share that information this evening. So Maureen, Dr. Pugh.
Thank you. So just in summary, the ACT and SAT assessments are both voluntary and self-selected. These are assessments, college preparation assessments, that students determine so that they know that they're meeting the entrance requirements for their next level of school. Both exams do qualify for the College and Career Ready designation for Washington County Public Schools in terms of college readiness. So the score structure, it's probably been a little bit since you've taken the ACT, or if you ever did. It has actually 4 sections: English, math, reading, and science, and then also a composite score. The available score range is anywhere between 1 and a 36.
We had 141 students participate in the ACT as graduating students. That equates to 8.5% of our graduates. These scores are based on the last take, so if a student takes the assessment more than once, this would be the last time that the student took the assessment, which is generally a higher score. You can see here that we have compared Washington County next to Maryland and the national scores. So the average score for the ACT for English was 21.1. The average score for mathematics was 22.1. The average score for reading was 23.0, and the average score for science was 22.6. So the composite equaled 22.4 points. Through the 4 different areas, we can project who is going to be successful in college-level coursework. So again, comparing Washington County with Maryland and national values, 68% of our students were ready for coursework in English. 52% were ready for college-level algebra. 56% were ready for a college-level social studies course. And 48% were ready for a college-level biology. So we had 36% of our graduating seniors who met all 4 benchmarks.
So the SAT, which you may be a little bit more familiar with, consists of 2 sections. The evidence-based reading and writing section, worth between 200 and 800 points, and then the math section, which is also between 200 and 800 points. For college and career readiness, in the evidence-based reading and writing, a student would earn 480. And that's the designation, and for math, it would be a 530. I know we've gone back and forth in these as they've renormed and re-prepared the tests. At one time, it was 500 for both of them, and then it was 550 for both of them, but the new numbers are actually 530 in math and 480 in the evidence-based reading and writing, with a total score possible between 400 and 1600.
We have more students participating in the SAT. We had 898 graduating students, which is 54.0% of our graduates. We are comparing here 2017 and 2018, again, Washington County versus Maryland and national. So from 2017 to 2018, our evidence-based reading and writing score, and again, this is last take for our students, increased by 1 point to 542. It's a similar slide for mathematics. The score from 27 to 2018 remained the same for math at 540. And then adding these 2 together, the composite increased by 1 point to 1,082. As Dr. Pugh mentioned, we use those 530 and 480 to project who is ready for college-level coursework. 77% of the students who participated in the SAT were ready for college coursework in reading and writing. 55% of our students were ready for college-level courses in math, and 52% of our students who took the SAT were ready for both math and English.
So currently, in order to help students prepare for each of these assessments, whichever assessment they should decide to take, we did our redesign of the Washington County Public Schools essential curriculum, and we backward mapped from the skills that were determined standard for college entrance. So those are our ending point, and we have built a curriculum that allows students to have experiences that increase in level of difficulty and level of skill, all the way up through in both math and in reading. But we've also embedded evidence-based writing across all contents. It's always been, you've done a lot of writing in social studies, but now using the evidence-based pieces, students are much more prepared when they hit the writing that's required of them on the SAT. There are also some free daily practice questions available. Khan Academy can offer multiple practice tests for students. You don't have to go out and buy the big book anymore. You really can do routine and regular preparation for it. We also do offer college prep and SAT prep courses at schools at the high school level.
I think that concludes our update and report. I'm sure staff will be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah. Just a couple real quickly. You say we do have 8 ACC and SAT prep courses. Is that at every school, Peggy, or just?
No, it's not. It's not at every school. And they can be combined, so it could be college prep courses where students are choosing which area they're going to continue to focus on. But no, it's not every school.
One other thing, if you don't mind. It says, let me get back here real quick to what I saw. Okay, SAT graduating students based on last take score, not best score.
No, College Board, and both the ACT and College Board, when they do their statistical analysis, use the last take.
Last take.
Mhm.
But you can still use your best take for college.
Yes,
Yeah.
most colleges accept the best take.
And that really was a challenge for us because students would go in and purposefully, you know, if they did really well on one section and they'd go in and just retake the other section and completely not take serious the other section. So it benefits the students that they get to continue to retake and they use their best take. But in terms of us, it's the last take, full sitting.
Just a curious question. Didn't there used to be a social studies part to the ACT years ago? I mean, I'm talking way back when I would have taken it.
Maybe way back, not that I'm
I was going to say, it
familiar
seems
with
to
now.
me, I remember a social studies part in the 60s. I'm old, though, but I mean.
In the 60s.
And
I'll
the other-
look back for you.
And why has the SAT thing been more acceptable through the years and still, rather than the ACT that colleges require? I mean, it seems to me they always want your SAT scores.
It's regional is what I've heard.
very
Regional colleges around here are looking more for SAT than
East
ACT.
Coast is mostly
Midwest and
SAT.
the other way is ACT.
Is it?
Midwest is ACT.
Is it?
It's been that way for a good while, Stan, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
And
It's
they've
like a-
actually pretty much shared market share, so about the same number of students take ACT as take SAT nationwide.
It is just really interesting, because we've seen that for years and years, it's been that way. Just other areas, it's almost 100% more ACT than is SAT.
Sometimes when I read things about colleges, the average SAT, it'll say the average SAT score of applicants and stuff, and I just never see the ACT, but then I'm not looking for schools in the Midwest either. I mean,
Any other questions?
Thank you both.
yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I asked Maureen to stay. I guess about 2 weeks ago, we invited 41 principals, actually a couple more because some came in combined schools. We had 41 meetings at least to review the new report card format individually with principals. I'm going to ask Maureen to share just briefly about the Maryland State Department of Education new report card, just so the potential or opportunity for the board to be aware of what the report card's about, also our viewing audience. I think it's one of those things after we went through, and I mostly did all the presentations, so 41 times, I think it was one of those things that takes a few minutes to learn something about it, but it's going to take a lifetime to master maybe. So Maureen, if you'll just give us the very broad overview of some of the pieces of the report card. There's a lot of communication tools on the Maryland State Report Card website that parents can look at to help understand various scores. Data for next year is going to change again because we're going to have some new pieces. There'll be a survey piece that'll add 10 points to elementary, middle, and high. MESA scores, our science fifth grade scores will count in elementary next year for 5 additional points. They'll count 3.5 points for 8th grade. Science scores out in the future. Social studies scores will count for an additional 3.5 points in middle school. So there's a lot of potential for change in some of these things. So we need a couple of years under our belt here for the future to kind of get a rhythm. But we're very pleased with the results that we've seen on the report card. A tremendous lot of credit out to our staff, the hard work that they've done. Not only our teachers, but our ESP support, administrative support. And I think our students did an outstanding job taking the wide variety of opportunities seriously, and I'm very pleased with the success we've had so far, and I think there's good things ahead. So, Maureen, if you just share briefly about the report card and take us to the website, I think is where we're going to go.
Yes, this is mdreportcard.org. So, and this letter was sent home with students on December the 4th, which is when when it was released. So you can see there's a number of tabs across the top. We can see state data, there's an introduction, resources, a lot of help guides. I know you got a couple of user guides and calculations, but there's a number of different resources in there because this does have a lot of components to it. So there's a lot to help parents to understand. So we're going to go to districts and schools, and sorry, it's lagging. You can either search for a school by name or you can look for it by county. So I'm going to click on Washington County. If we want to look at any one of these schools, we could just click on that school and look at the data with that associated with that school. We're going to look at the district data. So each school has a report card, and they look similar to the one that we're going to view for the district. There's a number of tabs across the top. First, you get an at-in glance, 22,595 students, and then the graduation rate is our four-year cohort. The report card is here. We also have demographics, so this has enrollment information. MCAP is our ELA, math, and it'll include science and government for high school. These three tabs will be populated at a later time as we get information available and update it. All of the report cards can be downloaded, and for the school ones, in the upper right-hand corner underneath the download, it would have the number of stars that the school was rated, as well as the percentile based on other schools of that grade level across the state. So for elementary schools, there's 4 different levels that contribute to the star rating. The academic achievement is worth 20 points. The academic progress is worth 30 points. The progress in achieving English language proficiency is based on a test called the Access Test, which is an assessment that we give to students who may be needing EL services, and it tests their English proficiency. And it's given in January and February, so we're coming up on that soon. You need to have 10 students that have 2 or more scores in order to have that score. So not all of our schools have a score in that English language proficiency. And then school quality and student success is 25 points. As Dr. Michael said, in 2018-19, we will have MISA added to that academic progress, so that'll bring a total up to 35 points. And the survey will be added to the school quality and student success, that'll bring that up to 35 points. Middle is very similar to elementary. The only difference is at that academic progress area. 3.5 points are going to come from the MISA, and 3.5 points will come from the future social studies assessment for MCAP. So that will bring our total academic progress points to 35 in the future. Next year, it'll be 31.5 out of total points. And then the survey will be added there as well. For high schools, because it's more of a long range, we look at students in high school kind of back through their high school career because they don't take the same assessment year after year. So it's more focused on the overall accomplishments, especially for our graduating students. So the academic achievement here is 30 points. We have a graduation rate which includes the 4- and 5-year cohort rates at 15 points. They also have the English language proficiency with 10 points. Readiness for post-secondary success, so for college or career, is going to be 10 points, and the school quality and student success is 25 points. And again, that survey will be added next year. Below that, the Department of Education is very focused on equity. So all of our subgroups with 10 or more students are reflected at the bottom with annual targets. And starting next year, it'll identify if there's been improvement from year to year on the report card. And then they also include the cohort graduation rate by subgroup. Now, with a cohort graduation rate, there needs to be a subgroup of 30 students, not just 10. So while other subgroups are 10, the graduation rate has to have 30. So that's why we see a couple groups missing from here. So we would encourage you to go and look at different school reports and really dig into it. The STAR system is a system where it's the available points and how many points the schools got. So if they get 75 to 100% of the available points, they would be rated as a 5-star. If they have 60 to 74.9, they do not round up in this area, would be a 4-star. 45 to 59 would be a 3-star. 30 to 44 would be a 2-star, and then 0 to 29 would be a 1-star. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer regarding the website. Questions?
We've spent hours and hours looking at the various school reports. We continue to discover new information. We're anxious to start looking at some individual student growth data and hopefully some success stories, things that we want to repeat at various schools and with various children. So thank you, Maureen, for all the work that she has done, and our technology team. A lot of reports had to be sent to the state and vetted and things like that to pull all this together. Like I say, they're still working out a few bugs at the state level, but we appreciate their efforts. More to come.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
The only other thing I would probably have is just to, my final comments of the evening, I think, would be to wish everybody happy holiday and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. We still have several days to go, so everybody staff this week, so I think 8 days here yet to go before the winter break, and I know people are looking forward to that. Had the opportunity after the 41 meetings with principals and 19 budget meetings, I was ready to get out into schools, so I've had the opportunity the last couple of days to spend some time in schools. Our students are working hard, and our teachers are working hard, and just a lot. I think people are kind of ready for that holiday, and you see a positive look on people's face, but it's very exciting to get an opportunity to get back out in the schools. So again, I wish staff and students and community happy holidays. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Michael. Our next item of business is personnel action. Dr. Bishop.
Good evening, Mrs. Williams, Dr. Michael, and board members. As discussed earlier in closed session, there's several staff changes for your review tonight. At this time, I ask for your approval of today's personnel actions.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. Is there a motion?
To accept personnel actions.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All right, we're unanimous. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to reports to the board. Committee reports. Would you like to begin down there, Mr. Mack, please? Thank you. Mrs. Murray?
I have nothing.
Thank you. Mr. Bickford?
Is that our next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for January 29th at 8 a.m.
Thank you. Mr. Gesford.
Thank you. Right now, we do not have any facility committee meetings scheduled due to the holidays and board reorganization for the committees.
Thank you. Mrs. Fisher?
Policy Committee met on November 29th. We made the one change to policy ECB about signs on school property that passed on second read a little earlier. And then we had a lengthy discussion of new requirements that were outlined in House Bill 1072 on our policy for reporting suspected child abuse and neglect. A number of items will be added on things such as staff training, on reporting such suspected abuse or neglect, and also we'll be adding an employee code of conduct to that policy as well as required by the state. We also considered a list of policies to be addressed in the year 2019. And a date for our next meeting will be announced at some later point.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. Mr. Ridenour?
Nothing at this time.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, with the reorganization, it's also our opportunity to look at committee assignments for 2019. I would ask that you send to me via email your 3 choices of committees. Each committee can have up to 3 members, and we'll look at committee preferences and make assignments and act on that at a future business meeting. So please let me know what your areas of interest are. Next item would be future agenda items. We have an upcoming joint meeting with the county commissioners on December 18th. And if I remember correctly, Dr. Michael, the Agenda Planning Committee made a decision to wait to go any further with agendas until the reorganization, so we'll have an Agenda Planning Committee coming up very soon
We
and
do
move
have
forward.
some pieces roughed out for January 8th. So we do have an agenda for January 8th, but
Right.
yes.
Okay. Brings us to board member comments this evening. Mr. Reiner, would you like to begin?
Nothing at this time, thank you. Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Mrs. Fisher?
I have nothing.
Thank you. Mr. Gesford?
Yes, I was able to attend the Maryland Municipal League dinner this past month with Dr. Pugh, and we had an enjoyable time around the table, doing some just mingling and good social time. I also like to, at this time, thank all of our staff, from our custodians up to our teachers and our and everybody in between who help support the holiday Christmas parties and the celebrations of music, performances that the children and students perform for parents, grandparents, and all the family members, all the extra things that they do to make this time of year special for our visitors into our schools. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank them for that, and I hope that everyone has a safe holiday.
Mr.
Had
Stout?
the opportunity to slip down after last policy committee meeting to the Student Government Association meeting at Boonesboro and observed that. And I was getting ready to leave, and Mr. Mackley reminded me that there was going to be food in the cafeteria. It was sampling of new foods to be offered by the cafeteria in the cafeterias. So I went over, all free food, all different types of things, and I sampled the healthiest items there. Very good pizza and cookies. So it was very good. And I'd like to congratulate the, I went because my grandson's in it, but the holiday program this past Saturday at Williamsport High School of the High Harmony and then the combined courses, the orchestra and the band. It was an excellent concert, and they raised over $1,900 and some for the Red Cross.
I have nothing at this time.
Mrs. Murray?
Well, I want to congratulate the Barbara Ingram School. They performed at the commissioner's swearing in, and it was a beautiful performance, as usual. And then I've been invited to help with the geography bee at Salem Avenue Elementary on the 18th, so I'm excited to be their timekeeper. And that's all I have.
Mr. Mackley?
I just wanted to give a special thank you to Mr. Embley from Food and Nutrition. One, for organizing the taste testing at our last student government meeting, and also to him and his staff for the new salad bar at Williamsport High School. It's very, very good, and thank you to him again.
Okay. I had the opportunity last Monday evening to go up the hill from where I live to Smithsburg Elementary School to be a guest reader, and I'd like to thank Mrs. Stephanie Davis and Principal Tamsin Wilson for their kind invitation. It was a pleasure to read to young children and to share my love of Chris Van Allsburg's work. And it was a special treat for me because I was reading to two children of a couple that the mother I had coached in OM for a number of years. So to see her there with her two young children and made me feel old, but to know that I was having a little bit of impact on two generations made me feel quite good. So, pardon? We are old. Thank you for that reminder.
If you want to feel young, go into our schools. It just lifts me right up.
All right.
Mrs. Williams, I have one thing.
Yes, sir,
I'm
Mr.
sorry
Gasser.
I forgot. On behalf of Linda and Jackie and myself, I think we'd like to thank the superintendent and the staff that always come in the back of the room. They were here for our swearing-in ceremony. Thank you for the hospitality, and we really appreciate you attending that. It was very nice of you, all of you, so thank you. On behalf of my colleagues that were there for the swearing-in, thank you too.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, if you have nothing else, we'll adjourn this meeting, and Mr. Reidner, we finished before 8 o'clock. We did, we did.